The sky was not normal that night. At first, people thought it was just another storm. Dark clouds stretched across the horizon, and strange lights flashed inside them. But then the clouds broke, and the truth was revealed. Above Earth, something huge appeared. It was not one ship, it was many. Massive black shapes hung in the sky, blocking out the stars. They moved with slow, heavy grace, like predators circling their prey. In cities around the world, people stopped whatever they were doing. Cars froze in the middle of the road. Workers left their machines. Children pressed their faces to windows. Everyone looked up. Fear spread without words. Governments tried to send messages. Radios, satellites, every channel carried the same desperate call. We welcome you. We mean no harm. But no reply came. The ships were silent. Then one of them opened. A burning beam of light stretched down to Earth. From that beam, something began to descend. At first it looked like shadows. Then the shapes became clear. They were not machines. They were warriors. The Amazons had arrived. They were taller than any human. Their bodies were strong, built like living weapons. Armor of black and silver clung to them like the skin of beasts. Each carried a weapon that glowed with deadly power. Their faces were sharp and cold, like statues carved from stone. When their leader stepped forward, her voice echoed across the ruined air. Earth is weak. Earth is ours. No one dared answer. The soldiers of Earth had weapons, yes, but deep inside they already knew. No tank, no missile, no bomb could fight these invaders. The Amazons were not here to negotiate. They were here to rule. Cities began to fall in hours. The Amazons spread across continents with brutal speed. No human army could stop them. And as the days passed, fear turned into despair. But not everyone was broken. Far from the shining cities in the ruins of an old military outpost, one man watched the sky with steady eyes. His name was Daniel Cross. He was not famous, not a leader, just an ex-soldier, tired of war. But when the Amazons came, something inside him refused to stay silent. Daniel saw the panic on television screens. He heard the cries of civilians on the radio. He saw Earth bending its knees before the invaders, and he clenched his fists. They think we are helpless, he muttered. They think we will kneel, not while I breathe. That night, Daniel moved through the broken streets of his city. Fires burned where alien patrols had landed. The sound of marching feet echoed from every corner. He hid behind the ruins of an old church and watched them. The Amazons moved with perfect order, tall shadows in the firelight. At their front was a commander. She pointed her spear at a group of captured civilians. The people begged for mercy. The commander gave none. Daniel felt his heart pound. His training told him one thing: stay hidden. He could not fight them alone, but something stronger than fear pushed him forward. He raised his old rifle. The weapon shook in his hands. He knew it would not be enough, but he had to try. The commander lifted her spear. Daniel pulled the trigger. The bullet struck. Sparks flew from the alien armor. The commander staggered back, surprised more than hurt. For the first time, an Amazon's eyes widened, not from anger but from shock. A human had dared to resist. The other Amazons turned at once. Their voices thundered through the night. Find him. Bring me his head. Daniel ducked behind the rubble, heart racing. Shots of alien fire burned the ground where he had been standing seconds before. He ran through broken alleys, flames lighting his path. The Amazons gave chase, but Daniel knew the city's ruins better. He vanished into shadows. Behind him, the civilians stared. For the first time since the invasion began, they saw something new: hope. In the mothership above, the Amazon leaders watched the battle feed. One of them, tall and fierce, slammed her hand against the table. "One man resists us," she hissed. "One man dares to stand?" Her name was Commander Sarath, and her pride burned hotter than any fire. "Find this human," she ordered. "Crush him before others rise." On the ground, Daniel caught his breath in an abandoned subway tunnel. His rifle was empty. His body ached, but his spirit was alive. "They think Earth is weak," he whispered to himself. "They think no one will fight. Let's prove them wrong." In the silence of the tunnel, his words echoed like a promise, and, somewhere far above, the Amazons began to fear for the first time that Earth might not be so helpless after all. The city was broken. Towers stood like black teeth in the night, their windows shattered, their walls cracked by fire. Smoke drifted over the streets carrying the smell of ash and fear. Alien patrols marched in the ruins. Their boots were heavy, their armor shining, in the glow of burning cars. Every step was the sound of conquest. Civilians hid in basements and tunnels, too afraid to breathe. The world belonged to the Amazons now, but not every heart had surrendered. In the shadows of a collapsed bridge, Daniel Cross waited. His hands were steady, his eyes fixed on the street below. He had one rifle, 3 bullets, and nothing else. He knew the math. Against alien warriors it was hopeless, but his heart didn't care. Tonight he was going to fight. The patrol appeared, 4 Amazons towering above the wreckage, their weapons glowing like pieces of lightning. At their center walked a commander with a spear of black steel. Behind them, civilians shuffled forward in chains. Daniel felt the blood in his veins turn hot. The prisoners were just ordinary people. An old man, a woman clutching her child, a few teenagers. They had no chance. The Amazons would drag them away and no one would ever see them again. Daniel raised his rifle. He breathed in, he breathed out, and he fired. The bullet cracked through the silence. One Amazon staggered, sparks flying from her armor. She dropped, to her knees more surprised than hurt. The patrol froze. Civilians gasped. For a second, the night was silent. Then chaos erupted. "Human fire," the commander roared. Her voice was like thunder. "Find him!" The Amazons spread out, searching the ruins. Their eyes glowed red in the dark. Their weapons burned with energy. They were hunters now. Daniel ducked low, sliding behind the broken wall of the bridge. His heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. He fired again, striking another Amazon in the chest. The alien roared in pain, armor cracked. The prisoners saw it. A man was fighting for them. Hope sparked. The commander lifted her spear, energy pulsing, threw it like lightning. She stabbed it into the ground and the street exploded. Concrete flew into the air. Daniel rolled away just in time, dirt and flame biting into his skin. "You dare?" the commander growled. Her tall figure cut through the smoke, a shadow of power and rage. Daniel fired his last bullet. It struck her shoulder, forcing her back a step. Her armor cracked. For the first time, an Amazon bled. The civilians gasped. The commander's eyes narrowed. "This human dies by my hand." Daniel's rifle clicked empty. He threw it aside and ran. The Amazons chased him, their heavy steps shaking the ground. He darted through alleys, past flaming cars, into the skeleton of an old office building. Inside, shadows stretched across broken walls. Daniel moved fast, weaving through staircases, hiding in corners. He could hear the Amazons behind him. Metal. Scraping, boots crashing, their deep voices promising death. But he was faster, smaller, quieter, and smarter. In a hallway filled with rubble, Daniel found a broken gas pipe. He pulled a flare from his pocket. For a moment he hesitated. If this worked, he might escape. If it didn't, he would die here. The Amazons entered, weapons raised. Daniel struck the flare. The fire roared. The gas ignited. The building shook, as flames swallowed the hallway. Windows shattered, walls cracked, dust filled the air. The Amazons staggered, their armor scorched by the blast. Daniel dove through a broken window, landing hard in the street below. His body screamed in pain, but he forced himself up. He had no rifle, no bullets, only his will. The civilians were still in chains on the street. The commander was distracted by the fire. Daniel ran to them, pulling at the metal locks. His hands bled as he worked. "Go!" he shouted. "Run now!" The old man hesitated. Who are you? Daniel looked him in the eyes. Just someone who won't kneel. The civilians ran into the night, their chains broken, their fear replaced by hope. The commander returned, her armor burned, her eyes filled with fury. She saw the empty chains. She saw the human who dared free them. You will pay, she growled. Daniel stood tall, though his body shook. He had no weapon, no plan, no chance. But he didn't move. Then come take me, he said. Above them, the mothership watched. On glowing screens, the Amazon leaders saw the battle unfold. Commander Sarath leaned forward, her face hard. This man again, she whispered. The one they call Daniel Cross. Another Amazon leader scoffed. He is only one man, he cannot stop us. But Sarath's eyes narrowed. One man is enough to light a fire. If others follow him, Earth will not be easy to break. She stood, her voice cold. This is no longer conquest, this is war, and I will end it myself. In the ruins below, Daniel limped into the shadows. His body ached, his hands shook, but his heart burned stronger than ever. He had saved lives tonight. He had hurt the invincible. The Amazons thought Earth was weak, but Daniel had shown them something they did not expect. Resistance. And resistance always grows. The nights after the clash were not quiet. Alien ships still hovered in the sky, black and endless, blocking the stars. Patrols moved through streets, dragging prisoners from their homes. Fires burned where whole neighborhoods had once stood. People whispered in basements, afraid to speak too loud, afraid the Amazons would hear. But one name began to spread like smoke. Daniel Cross. The man who shot an Amazon. The man who freed prisoners. The man who refused to kneel. Children whispered it like a story. Adults spoke it like a prayer. The Amazons spoke it with rage. In a ruined subway station, Daniel sat alone. His body was bruised, his ribs ached, but his mind stayed sharp. He cleaned his rifle with slow, careful hands, though he had no bullets left. He had won nothing, not really. The city was still in chains. The Amazons were still everywhere. But he had seen it in their eyes. The civilians he freed. Hope. A small flame in the dark, and he knew flames could spread. The sound of static cut through the silence. Daniel froze. His old military radio crackled with life. A voice came through, weak and broken. Anyone listening? Survivors near the east tunnels. Need help? Please. Daniel stared at the radio. Was it real or a trap? His gut told him both were possible. The Amazons had already started setting lures using fake human voices to draw rebels out. But if it was real, if survivors truly needed him, could he ignore it? He packed his rifle, his knife, and his courage, and he went. The east tunnels were dark and full of dust. Daniel moved slow, careful, his ears sharp for the sound of patrols. His flashlight cut a thin line across the rubble. Then he saw them. Shapes in the shadows. A group of people, thin, dirty, their eyes wide with fear. Survivors. Please, a woman whispered, holding a child close. Help us. Daniel lowered his rifle. Relief flooded him. He stepped forward, and then the wall behind them split. Open alien armor gleamed. Eyes glowed red. A squad of Amazons stepped out, weapons raised. It was a trap. Human fool. One of them hissed. Did you think you were clever? Did you think you could hide? Daniel's heart raced. He pulled the survivors behind him, shielding them with his own body. His knife was in his hand, small and weak compared to their weapons. The commander of the squad stepped forward, her spear sparking with deadly energy. She smiled, sharp and cruel. You are the one called Cross, she said, the one who dares to fight. You will kneel, and then you will die. Daniel's mind worked fast. He couldn't outfight them. He couldn't outrun them, not with civilians at his side, but he could outthink them. He glanced at the ceiling of the tunnel. Cracks spread across it. The old stone looked weak. One strong blast might bring it down. He grabbed the flare from his pocket, the last one he had. He struck it, the fire hissing to life. The Amazons raised their weapons, ready to fire. Daniel threw the flare at the ceiling. The explosion was thunder. Rocks and dust crashed down, the tunnel shaking like the end of the world. The Amazons roared, in anger, buried under rubble. Fire filled the air. Daniel dragged the survivors through the chaos, coughing, eyes burning from smoke. He didn't stop until they reached the surface where the night air felt sharp and clean. The survivors gasped at the sky. They were free. Daniel dropped to his knees, exhausted. One of the teenagers looked at him with wide eyes. "You're the man from the story, the soldier, the one who fights them." Daniel gave a tired smile. "I'm just a man who refuses to bow." That night, in a broken factory on the edge of the city, Daniel made a choice. He could not fight alone anymore. One man with a rifle was not enough. But a group, a resistance, could strike, could sabotage, could make the Amazons bleed. He looked at the survivors he had saved. Men, women, even children. None were soldiers, but all of them had fire in their eyes. "We can't hide forever," Daniel said. "If we do, they'll crush us one by one. But if we fight, if we use their own arrogance against them, we have a chance." The survivors nodded. Fear still lived in their faces, but behind it something stronger grew. Courage. High above, in the alien mothership, Commander Sarath stood before a glowing map of the city. Red markers showed human resistance growing. "This is him again," she said coldly. "The one who frees the weak, the one who burns with defiance." Her second in command frowned. "Why do you care so much for one man? He is nothing." Sarath's eyes were fire. "He is not nothing, he is a seed, and seeds grow into forests. Crush him before his roots spread." She raised her spear. "The hunt begins." In the shadows of Earth, Daniel Cross cleaned his knife and loaded a stolen alien pistol, its strange energy humming in his hand. He looked at the survivors. No longer just victims, but the first soldiers of a new fight. The resistance was born, and Daniel knew the Amazons would come for him harder than ever. But he was ready. Because when one man refuses to kneel, others will rise beside him. Inside the alien mothership, silence ruled. The halls were vast and metallic, glowing with strange blue light. At the center, in a chamber of black stone and fire, stood Commander Sarath. Her tall frame gleamed in armor forged from alien steel. Her spear rested beside her throne, its blade humming with energy. Around her, lesser Amazons knelt in respect, waiting for her words. But Sarath said nothing. Her golden eyes stared at the battle reports floating above her table. Every report spoke of the same thing: destruction, conquest, human surrender. Except one. One report carried a name: Daniel Cross. Sarath clenched her jaw. She remembered the first images, the human who had dared fire at her warriors, the one who freed captives, the one who vanished like a shadow after every clash. To others, he was nothing. One man. Weak, small, fragile. But Sarath was no fool. She had fought across 100 worlds. She knew the danger of defiance. One spark could set a forest on fire, and Daniel Cross was that spark. "Bring him to me," Sarath commanded. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "Alive or dead, I want his body at my feet." The Amazons bowed low. "Yes, Commander." On Earth, Daniel Cross moved through ruins with his small band of survivors. The resistance was growing, not fast, not strong, but steady. They hid in subway tunnels and burned out factories, in caves beyond the city. By day, they studied alien patrols. By night, they struck. Small ambushes, traps in alleys, explosives planted on supply lines. Every strike was small, but every strike spread the same message: Earth still fights. Daniel sat by a fire in an abandoned warehouse, his pistol resting beside him. His eyes studied a piece of alien armor cracked from their last raid. "They're not invincible," he told his fighters. Their armor breaks. Their weapons can be stolen. We can bleed them. A young woman named Sarah, one of the survivors he had saved, leaned forward. But they'll come for us harder now, won't they? Daniel nodded. Yes, and when they do so, we'll make them regret it. That same night, the Amazons struck back. Daniel and his fighters awoke to the sound of thunder. The ground shook as alien dropships descended, engines roaring like storms. Light cut through the darkness. Move, Daniel shouted. His people scattered, diving into tunnels, dragging their supplies. Alien soldiers poured into the warehouse, their weapons blasting holes in the walls. Sparks rained down as fire spread. Daniel fired his pistol, the stolen alien energy burning holes through their armor. Sarah threw a homemade explosive, collapsing part of the ceiling. Screams and sparks filled the air. But then a shadow filled the doorway. Commander Sarath herself stepped into the flames. She was taller than the others, her armor marked with golden scars, her spear glowing like lightning trapped in steel. Her gaze locked onto Daniel across the smoke and rubble. So, she said, her voice calm but sharp, you are the human who dares resist. Daniel aimed his pistol at her. And you're the one who thinks Earth will kneel. Sarath smiled, though it was not warm. You amuse me. On 100 worlds, no one has spoken to me like this. You are either brave or foolish. Maybe both, Daniel replied. Bayou. Flash was instant. Sarath moved with speed that defied her size, her spear flashing toward him. Daniel rolled aside, firing his pistol. Energy bolts struck her armor, but she hardly flinched. Sparks flew, but she pressed forward. Daniel ducked behind a wall, the stone exploding as her spear smashed through it. The impact shook the entire warehouse. His fighters tried to help, throwing fire, shooting from cover. But Sarath was unstoppable. With one sweep of her spear, she sent them flying. Run! Daniel shouted to his people. Get out now! They hesitated, but then obeyed, vanishing into tunnels below. Daniel stayed behind. Sarath advanced, her eyes burning like fire. Why do you resist, human? You cannot win. Your people are weak. Your weapons are toys. Why fight when defeat is certain? Daniel stood, breathing hard, his pistol shaking in his hand. Because we don't kneel, he said. Not to you, not to anyone. For a moment, Sarath's expression changed. She had seen fear in 1,000 eyes. But in his, she saw only defiance, and it made her angry. With a roar, she thrust her spear again. Daniel fired his last shot. The bolt hit her square in the chest, cracking her golden armor. She staggered, fury flashing across her face. But before she could strike again, the ceiling above groaned. The fire had spread too far. The building was collapsing. Daniel dove into the tunnels, the floor caving behind him. When the dust settled, Sarath stood alone in the rubble. Her armor was cracked, her spear scorched, but she still stood tall. Her soldiers approached, bowing low. Shall we chase him, Commander? Sarath looked at the smoke where Daniel had vanished. She touched the crack in her armor, her expression cold. No, she said. He will come again. He always does. And when he does, I will be waiting. Deep underground, Daniel limped through the tunnels, his body bruised, his pistol empty, his fighters gathered around him, eyes wide with fear. You faced her, Sarah whispered. The commander herself. Daniel nodded, pain heavy in his voice. And she bleeds. The resistance stared at him in silence, and in that silence, a new belief was born. The Amazons could be hurt. Even their commander was not untouchable, and Daniel Cross had proved it. The underground tunnels smelled of smoke and damp stone. Fires still burned above, where Commander Sarath had torn through. The city like a storm. The resistance had escaped, but they were shaken. Daniel Cross sat on a broken crate, his shirt torn, blood on his ribs. Around him the survivors whispered in fear. They had seen the commander. They had seen her power. She can't be stopped, one man muttered. She is like a god, another whispered. Daniel said nothing. He stared at the crack in his pistol, the weapon useless now. His body was tired, his spirit heavy. For the first time since the invasion, doubt crept into his mind. But then he remembered Sarath's armor, cracked. He remembered her stagger. When his last shot hit, she could bleed. And if she could bleed, she could fall. The resistance grew bolder in the following days. Daniel led raids on supply lines, stealing alien energy cells. Sarah and the others set traps in the ruins, destroying patrols. Hope began to spread wider, but hope always draws fire. One night, as the fighters prepared another ambush, Daniel noticed something strange. One of the new recruits, a man named Carter, kept glancing at the tunnels with nervous eyes. His hands shook too much for a soldier. He asked too many questions about where they hid, where they stored weapons, how many people were in the resistance. Daniel's gut told him something was wrong, but Daniel needed every fighter he could get. He pushed the thought aside. The trap was set in the West District. Broken cars lined the street, wired with explosives. Fighters waited in the shadows. The plan was simple. When the Amazon patrol walked through, the resistance would strike. Fast and hard. But the patrol never came. Instead, dropships roared overhead. Beams of light split the night. Hundreds of Amazons poured into the district, more than Daniel had ever seen at once. "It's a trap," Sarah screamed. Daniel's chest froze. Only one answer made sense. Someone had told the Amazons. Someone had betrayed them. The battle was chaos. Explosions tore through the street as the resistance tried to fight back, but the Amazons were too many. Their weapons blasted holes in the ground, their spears cut through fire and smoke. Daniel fired from behind rubble, cutting down one soldier, then another. But everywhere he looked, his people were falling. Carter was gone. The traitor had vanished before the fight even started. "Fall back," Daniel shouted, voice hoarse. "Into the tunnels." But it was too late. The Amazons blocked the exits. Flames spread across the street. One by one, resistance fighters fell. Daniel ran to Sarah, who was dragging a wounded boy through the rubble. Together, they pulled him into a broken building. But inside, the truth struck them. Half their fighters were gone, their supplies destroyed, their hideout locations exposed. The resistance had been broken. Daniel dropped to his knees, rage burning in his chest. He slammed his fist against the floor. "I should have seen it. I should have known." Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. Her voice was soft, but her eyes were hard. "You couldn't have known. Carter fooled us all, but we're still here. You're still here." Daniel looked at her. His face was full of anger, but beneath it, guilt. He had led these people. And now so many were dead because he trusted the wrong man. High above, in the mothership, Commander Sarath stood before her soldiers. Reports of victory filled the room. Screens showed images of human corpses, of fire, of broken tunnels. One soldier knelt. "The resistance is destroyed, Commander. Their leader escaped, but his army is gone." Sarath's lips curved into a cold smile. "Good. Let him live. Let him crawl in the ashes of his failure. That is a better punishment than death." She raised her spear. "But do not be fooled. He will rise again, and when he does, I will be ready." In the ruins of the city, Daniel sat in silence. The survivors who remained, Sarah, the wounded boy, a few others, looked at him with tired eyes. "What now?" Sarah asked. Daniel's voice was low. "We lost too much. We can't fight them like this anymore." For a moment his words hung heavy in the air. The fire in the survivors' eyes dimmed, but then Daniel stood. His body was broken, but his spirit still burned. "We will rebuild," he said. "We will strike again. They think this is over, but it isn't. As long as one of us stands, it isn't over." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then we'll stand with you." That night, as Daniel walked alone through the ruins, he clenched his fists. Betrayal had cost him dearly. Friends were dead, trust was shattered, hope nearly crushed. But the Amazons had made a mistake. They had left him alive. And as long as he lived, Earth still had a chance. The ruins of the West District still smoked days after the ambush. Black ash covered the streets. Broken weapons lay scattered like bones. For the Amazons, it was a victory. For Daniel Cross, it was a wound that refused to heal. Half his fighters were gone. Trust was shattered. Betrayal still burned in his chest. But as he walked through the ashes, Daniel knew one thing. Mourning would not save Earth. Only action would. In a hidden tunnel beneath the city, the survivors gathered around a small fire. Sarah tended to the wounded boy. A few others sat in silence, their faces hard. They looked to Daniel not as a man, but as their last hope. "We can't fight them head on," one of the survivors whispered. "They are too strong. Too many." Daniel nodded. "We can't match their numbers, we can't match their strength, but we can learn their secrets, and once we understand their weapons, we can use them against them." His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with fire. "That's how we turn the tide." That night, Daniel led a mission unlike any before. The Amazons had set up a research hub in the shell of an old skyscraper. From there, they studied human weapons, laughing at their weakness, and stored their own technology for patrols. Daniel's plan was simple: get inside, steal something powerful, and escape alive. The resistance moved under cover of darkness. They crept through alleys, past patrols silent as ghosts. When they reached the skyscraper, Daniel raised his hand, signaling his fighters to wait. Then he slipped inside alone. The building glowed with alien energy. Blue lights pulsed across the walls. Strange humming filled the air, like a heartbeat that wasn't human. Daniel's footsteps were soft, his breath controlled. He moved past guard stations, ducking behind pillars, until he reached the core of the building. What he saw made him stop cold. Rows of alien weapons lined the walls, spears, rifles, and armor unlike anything on Earth. At the center stood a massive generator, pulsing with energy, the heart of their power. Daniel smiled. This was it. He moved quickly, pulling wires, grabbing power cells, strapping alien pistols to his belt. Each weapon hummed in his hands, heavy with strange energy. He didn't understand the technology, but he would learn. As he worked, footsteps echoed behind him. Daniel froze. A patrol entered the chamber. 4 Amazons, tall and armored, their eyes glowing red. They stopped when they saw him, their weapons rising as one. "Human thief," one growled. "You dare touch what belongs to us?" Daniel's pulse quickened. He had no choice. He raised the alien pistol in his hand and pulled the trigger. The weapon roared like thunder. A beam of energy shot across the room, striking an Amazon square in the chest. Her armor shattered. She crashed to the ground, unmoving. The others roared, in rage. They charged. Daniel ducked behind the generator, firing again. Another soldier fell. Sparks and smoke filled the air. The ground shook under heavy boots. Daniel's heart raced. The weapon was powerful, but unstable. Each shot burned his arm, the energy wild. But it was working. For the first time, an Amazon. Patrol was not winning. The last soldier swung her spear, nearly cutting him in half. Daniel rolled aside, firing point blank. The blast ripped through her armor, sending her crashing into the wall. Silence fell. The chamber smelled of smoke and scorched metal. Daniel stood alone among the dead. He looked at the weapon in his hand, his arm trembling from the recoil. A slow smile spread across his face. "We can fight them," he whispered. "We can actually fight them." By dawn, Daniel returned to the resistance base with stolen weapons and energy cells. The survivors stared in awe as he laid them out on the ground. Alien pistols, power cores, armor fragments, proof the Amazons were not untouchable. Sarah touched one of the weapons, her eyes wide. "You killed them with this?" Daniel nodded. "And now we'll learn to use them. We'll train. We'll build. And we'll show them Earth is not theirs to take." For the first time, the survivors cheered. Far above, in the mothership, Commander Sarath stood over a hologram of the city. Reports flooded in. Patrols destroyed, weapons stolen, soldiers dead. Her eyes narrowed. "Cross." She touched the crack in her golden armor. Still scarred from their last battle, rage burned through her veins. "Let the humans play with our weapons," she said coldly. "It will not save them. It will only make their deaths more painful." She lifted her spear, its edge glowing like fire. "Prepare my army. I will crush this resistance myself. Deep underground, Daniel trained his people with alien weapons. Sparks flew as survivors practiced firing at walls. The wounded boy, now able to stand, aimed with determination. Daniel watched them, pride in his eyes. The resistance was no longer just survivors. They were becoming soldiers, and with every blast of stolen fire, Earth's future shifted. The Amazons had thought humanity weak. But now the tide was turning. The sky was no longer quiet. Alien ships moved above the city like dark storms, their engines roaring, their lights cutting through the smoke. On the ground, patrols searched every corner. The Amazons were restless, their commander furious. For weeks, the resistance had struck and vanished. Supply lines were destroyed. Patrols ambushed, alien weapons stolen. Rumors spread fast. The humans were fighting back. At the heart of it all was one man, Daniel Cross. Commander, Sarath had sworn to end him. Tonight she would. In the tunnels, Daniel prepared his people. The survivors were no longer the weak and frightened group he had first saved. Now they carried alien pistols, stolen armor, explosives built from scraps. Their eyes no longer held only fear. They held fire. Daniel stood before them, his voice steady. This is it, they're coming for us, not just soldiers, her, the commander herself. If we stand together tonight, we show the whole world the Amazons can bleed. We show them Earth is not broken. The fighters nodded. Some were young, some old, but all were ready. Sarah stepped forward. We're with you, Daniel, to the end. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget. The battle began at dawn. Alien dropships thundered down, their beams of light tearing into the ruins. Hundreds of Amazons marched in formation, their weapons glowing. At their front walked Sarath, her golden armor repaired, her spear alive with energy. Cross! Her voice boomed across the battlefield. Come face me. Let all your kind see. Their false hope crushed. Daniel emerged from the rubble, pistol in hand, alien rifle slung across his back. The resistance spread behind him, hidden in ruined buildings and tunnels. He shouted loud enough for all to hear. Earth doesn't kneel! The Amazons charged. Energy bolts lit the sky. Explosions tore through walls. But the resistance was ready. Traps hidden in rubble exploded, collapsing buildings on alien squads. Fighters opened fire with stolen pistols, beams cutting through armor. The battlefield shook with chaos. Sarath pushed forward, unstoppable, her spear smashing barricades, her voice commanding her army. Daniel fought his way through soldiers, firing, until his pistol overheated, grabbing another weapon, never stopping. Everywhere he went, his people followed. The resistance moved like fire spreading through dry grass, small but unstoppable. At the center of the chaos, Sarath and Daniel finally faced each other. She towered over him, spear crackling with power. He stood with an alien rifle in his hands, his body bruised but his spirit burning. You cannot win, Sarath said. I am strength. I am power. You are nothing. Daniel leveled the rifle at her chest. Then why are you bleeding? Her eyes narrowed. She still bore the scar of his last strike hidden beneath the golden plates. With a roar, she attacked. The duel shook the ruins. Sarath swung her spear, sparks flying as it smashed against walls and shattered stone. Daniel rolled, fired, dodged, his shots cracking her armor. She moved like a storm, but he fought like fire, fast, fierce, unyielding. Around them, the battle raged. The resistance and Amazons clashed in the streets, explosions echoing. But all eyes kept turning to the duel. Every strike Daniel landed reminded the humans that even the strongest alien could be hurt. Every roar of Sarath reminded the Amazons that humans were not so weak. Finally, Sarath caught him. Her spear slashed across his side, throwing him to the ground. Pain exploded in his body. His rifle clattered away. She raised her spear above him, ready to end it. Now it is finished, she growled. But Daniel's hand closed around something small at his belt, a stolen alien power cell. He activated it, the device sparking with unstable energy. He looked up at her, his face pale but his eyes steady. Not finished. Not yet. and he slammed the cell into her chest. The explosion was blinding. Serath staggered back, her armor shattering, her roar echoing across the battlefield. The blast tore her spear from her hands. She fell to one knee, blood on her lips, her golden armor cracked wide open. Silence swept across the ruins. Daniel forced himself to stand, broken and bleeding, but unbowed. He picked up her fallen spear, its blade glowing with stolen fire. He raised it high, his voice thunder. "She is not a god, she bleeds like us." The resistance roared. Hope surged through their hearts. Even some Amazons froze, shaken by the sight of their commander on her knees. Serath tried to rise, fury burning in her eyes. But Daniel drove the spear into the ground beside her head, inches from her face. The message was clear. She had been defeated. The Amazons looked to their commander, uncertain for the first time. Without her strength, their pride faltered. Serath spat blood, her voice low. "This is not over." Daniel's voice was steady. "No, it's only beginning." Hours later, the dropships lifted, carrying the Amazons back to the sky. They had not been destroyed, but they had been beaten. And the whole world had seen it. On the broken battlefield, the resistance stood tall. Smoke curled into the sky, but in their eyes burned something stronger than fire. Hope. Daniel Cross leaned on the shattered spear, his body weak, but his spirit unshaken. He looked at the survivors, at Sarah, at the boy who now carried a stolen pistol with steady hands. Earth was still scarred. The war was not over, but tonight humanity had proven something unshakable. They were not helpless, they were not broken, and they would never kneel.